Good evening and Navroz Mubarak to all of you. My name is Mina John Muhammad, and I would like to thank you for joining us for tonight's program. To mark and celebrate Navroz this year, the Ismaili Jamaat Khanaan Center, in collaboration with the Office of Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti and the Amman Cultural Center of Los Angeles, has created a virtual program of celebration. Ismaili Jamaat Khanas around the world are more than places of worship and spiritual search. As His Highness the Aga Khan, spiritual leader of the Ismaili Muslims, has explained, these are places where Ismailis and non-Ismailis, Muslims and non-Muslims, will gather for shared activities, seminars and lectures, recitals and receptions, exhibitions and social events. But they will also, we trust, be filled with the sounds of enrichment, dialogue, and warm human rapport, as Ismailis and non-Ismailis share their lives in a healthy, gregarious spirit. These spaces hope to encourage community engagement and collaboration on issues of concern, as well as broadening intellectual horizons and even fostering an appreciation of pluralism through arts and cultural events. It is my pleasure to be a part of this special program that takes a close look at how this new year is celebrated in many cultures. Nowruz is an ancient celebration that marks the arrival of spring with the promise of spiritual and physical rejuvenation, as well as gratitude for the blessings received. It is a day that reflects the vernal equinox on the 20th of March, when the sun crosses the celestial equator and equalizes day and night. In the Persian calendar, it represents the beginning of a new year. Over time, this celebration has been integrated into various cultures and faith traditions. Tonight, we will have a special guest who will discuss his new film about Nowruz, and we will have an opportunity to view it. First, I would like to ask Dr. Namazika, president of the Amman Cultural Center, Los Angeles, to welcome you.
It's my honor and pleasure to say Happy New Year, Eid Shema Mubarak, on behalf of the Board of Trustees, Board of Directors, and members of the Amman Cultural Center. Amman Cultural Center has been established about 30 years ago and founded by the support of the Iranian Muslim community. From the beginning that we opened the door was open to all of the people from all different faiths and nationality, and successfully become the House of Interfaith Festival of Unity, Diversity, and Unity World Council. And with that pleasure that I have to talk to you, it's very honorable to cooperate with the Ismaili faith in the mutual event that we had. The doors are open to everybody, and we don't have a membership requirement to come to Amman. At the Amman Center, we have places for the gathering, for the wedding, memorial services, library, classrooms, and everything that the community center needed. And we are privileged to be supported by LA City Mayor and the members of the Congress and the Assembly and Senate of the California. I would be very happy to welcome you all to the Amman Center and enjoy spending time at this center. Thank you very much for listening, and God bless you all.
Thank you, Dr. Namazika. Now we have messages from Chief Michael Moore of the Los Angeles Police Department, as well as Eric Garcetti, Mayor of the City of Los Angeles.
Happy Nowruz. I'm Chief Michael Moore, Chief of the Los Angeles Police Department. Many communities celebrate this time of year as their New Year's. And in Los Angeles, recognition of this day by all of you reflect the vibrant and diverse cultures in our city, reinforcing the cosmopolitan nature of its people. Los Angeles has benefited from the extraordinary contribution of our diaspora communities. There is strength in diversity. All faith traditions and cultures have special festivities to mark this occasion. And I'm pleased to acknowledge this special day to wish you and your families a peaceful and healthy year ahead. Nowruz Mubarak.
Salam. Angelenos who celebrate Nowruz have been waiting for this moment, when winter turns to spring, when flowers begin to blossom, and we are reminded that a new day is always on the horizon. This past year has been so difficult and painful, and we've all, maybe more than any year before, been anxiously waiting for our lives to get back to normal. But Nowruz gives us hope of new beginnings, and many of you have been doing your spring cleaning and buying sabzi for your Hatsin table in a renewed spirit of rebirth and of growth. This Nowruz, my wish for you and for your family is a year filled with good health and happiness and love. Nowruz Mubarak.
Our thanks to Chief Moore and Mayor Garcetti for honoring this day and for the good wishes. Now we turn to our guest, Dr. Farzin Rezaeian, award-winning documentary and educational film producer, director, and author. He has produced an acclaimed documentary titled Iran, 7 Faces of Civilization, using animation to bring ancient wonders to life to show us Iran's historical and cultural achievements. His other films are Persepolis Recreated and Incredible Isfahan. His latest works are a book and film, The Spirit of Nowruz. We have an award-winning journalist, Farah Fazl, with us, who will discuss the genesis of this project with Dr. Farzin and the significance of this day in many cultures. Farah Fazl is an award-winning, multilingual, multi-platform journalist. She specializes in immigration reporting, covering diverse communities, terrorism reporting, and foreign correspondence. She has written about refugee camps in Kenya and Somalia, about money laundering, undocumented children, and on violence on the US-Mexico border. Farah has also traveled to report on refugee camps in Lebanon, the war in Syria, and conflicts in Bosnia and in Pakistan. Farah believes powerful storytelling comes from powerful emotional connections to compelling stories that uncover injustice and hold the powerful accountable.
It's the first day of spring today, but it is also a really important day for 300 million people around the world today. They will all be saying Nowruz Mubarak, Happy New Year to each other wherever they are in the world. And actually, it is whether it is a religious holiday for them or whether it is a cultural holiday for them, this is one of the most important days of the Muslim calendar and of the secular calendar for them. And my guest today, Dr. Farzin Rezaeian, thought it was so important to mark this day in history that he spent years and actually so much manpower to try to document something that we actually haven't seen, how people around the world celebrate Nowruz. Dr. Rezaeian is joining me from Tehran. Thank you so much for being on the other end here. And Nowruz Mubarak to you.
Nowruz Mubarak to you too. Salam alaikum. Hello to everybody. Peace be unto you and all your viewers. And I should like to start with a saying by Saadi, if I may, who, as you know, is a very famous Persian poet who wrote some 700 years ago. He said, if there were no rose, there would be no nightingale singing in the grove.
How beautiful. It's so appropriate today. You know, I want you to tell me why you did this. It was not easy for you to do this. Why did you do this?
Okay. Well, I don't know if you have seen our previous works, but my works are mainly concerned with Iranian civilization and culture. And there's a very good reason for it, because I was fascinated by the Iranian culture. This is a culture or a civilization that is over 5,000 years old. And consider some countries in a region that are 100 or 200 years old. You can see this continuity of cultural sphere in Iran. And there are certain good points that I have pointed out in my previous works, and that is the formation of civilization in this part of the world, in Mesopotamia and Iran, some 6,000 years ago. So we have the formation of the first cities. That's where, you know, the civilis, that is the Latin word, civil life. civilization started here. And then we have the beginning of history. What differentiates between prehistory and historical era is the formation of writing. And that happened here also. So we have a lot of good things here to work on. We move forward, we come to the Achaemenid period. We have the Cyrus Cylinder, the first charter of human rights. We have the first international law called DOD or data. The word data is derived from that, by the way. And we move forward, we come to a country or a region which is presenting to the world one of the most eloquent and elaborate form of poetry, you know, with Saadi, Hafiz, Ferdowsi, Omar Khayyam, and
sure.
Rumi, of course, who wrote in Persian. And putting these together are done in my previous work, which add up to 7 books and documentary films with recreating Pasargade or Iran's 7 Faces of a Civilization, the 5,000 years of Iranian engineering. Having said that, there is one single cultural point which is worth putting all your efforts in order to explain that to the world, and that is Nowruz. That is the best manifestation of the peace, the friendship, the family reunion, the best manifestation of the cultural principles that have been forming in this part of the world.
And well, not only have you written this beautiful book, but you actually produced a documentary which will air on Ismaili TV, and everybody will get to see it. I just want to show a few seconds, 90 seconds of what a compilation of what you've done. Let's take a look here for just a few seconds of what we're going to see.
The Spirit of Nowruz, one family, one song, provides an unprecedented insight into the vibrant rites and rituals of Nowruz, one of the world's most ancient and enduring festivities. This magnificently illustrated book, enhanced by some 300 fantastic pictures, along with its dazzling companion DVD, provide an indispensable documentary of this colorful and joyous festival that today is celebrated by a great family of over 300 million people around the world.
Nowruz Mubarak.
The Spirit of Nowruz, one family, one song.
Dr. Rezaeian, you actually sent people all around the world to capture these images because Nowruz happens once a year. So this was not easy for you to do. Help me understand how you were able to do this. How were you able to capture all these images and all of these traditions, both religious and cultural, right?
Yes. Actually, we are a very small company, independent, private, small company, but very dedicated. I can assure you about that. So we were confronted with a big problem because Nowruz, as you said, is happening once a year. You know, take for example, you want to cover the Super Bowl. It doesn't happen again. You know, you cannot do it the next day.
That's
so you
right.
have to be there present. You know, and it's in such a vast region, you know, so many different countries, and also inside Iran, so many different groups of people, communities, different religions, and different ethnicities, and so on and so forth. So what we did was that we gathered around a group of 21 young, energetic photographers and camera women and camera men, and dispatched them to all these different regions. We even commissioned some other groups, you know, professional groups, for instance, in New York, to capture the ceremonies at the United Nations, you know, and also as far as Mongolia, for instance. At Persepolis, for instance, this goes back to about 2,500 years ago, that many scholars believe that show us the time of the new year. There are certain lions devouring a bull, the new year ending the old year, as many scholars tell us. So, and there is a depiction of all these different people from almost 23 satrapies or governorships of the Persian Empire who bring their gifts for Nowruz celebrations. This is a very important site, as explained in the book and in the film. So it's been here for millennia. So over the centuries, of course, there has been some modifications, some additions, some changes, you know, that's inevitable. But the good thing is that it's been celebrated by different groups of people, different ethnicities, and different religious groups. So as you will see in the film, we have Jewish families, we have Christian families, we have Muslim families, both Sunni and Shia, and we have Zoroastrians and many other groups of people who all celebrate Nowruz, but there are certain additions or, you know, minor differences. Putting them together brings me to this understanding that the basics are the same. All these people are like flowers of the same garden, you know, members of one extended family, the family of Nowruz nations.
How when you were growing up, when you were a young boy, I remember when I was young, you know, my parents always, when they took me to Khane, to mosque, we would get what we called rosi, which is like little bits of wheat, and that was, you know, to indicate prosperity, that our new year would be filled with prosperity as we prayed. When you were young, was there something that you had a tradition of that where you grew up in Iran, in Tehran, that you thought was really specific and that you treasured? I think all of us have those memories of Nowruz, right? I'd love to know what it was for you personally.
Okay. At that time and even today, you know, older people give AD, you know, they give gifts to the younger ones.
Yes.
Usually it's cash over here. So
usually, at
the end of the day, all the children would gather around, you know, and they start counting the money, you know, and they get happy. I remember
that as well, right?
So that was our case, you know, and that made all the kids happy.
You know, Dr. Rezaeian, as I looked through the book and the documentary, one of the things that I was really touched about, that I don't know that a lot of people know, how important Nowruz is, not only really just to the people who celebrate, but really to the world as a whole. The United Nations has declared March 21st the International Day of Nowruz. So I went to the United Nations website, and this is what the Secretary General says about the International Day of Nowruz. He says, Nowruz plays a significant role in strengthening the ties among peoples based on mutual respect and the ideals of peace and good neighborliness. These are the things that we're always taught as kids. Its traditions and rituals reflect the cultural and ancient customs of the civilizations of the East and the West, which influenced those civilizations through the interchange of human values. But he talks a lot about how Nowruz is this harmony with nature and this awareness of the inseparable link between people and nature, and how we are just respectful towards each other and these natural sources of life, because ultimately it's about the spring, about nature, and about people coming together, and this rebirth that is about spring. It's interesting that we perhaps didn't understand how important a day Nowruz is, not just for the people who celebrate, but really as this coming together for the entire world, and that the United Nations actually recognizes this day for all of us. Why don't you think we all didn't know much more about that?
Okay, let me start with this. Spring is a miracle in nature, isn't it? It's the rebirth of nature. Nowruz is also a miracle because it has given a rebirth among countries. The miracle of Nowruz could be understood in the United Nations because some 12 countries who have different political views, even some minor problems with each other, as a result of Nowruz, they gathered together, they joined together, and collectively registered Nowruz as the cultural heritage of humanity.
Dr. Rezaeian, thank you for joining us today. It was really such a pleasure and an honor to meet you and to talk with you about this. Thank you for giving us the spirit of Nowruz.
Thank you so much.
Nowruz Mubarak to you.
Nowruz Mubarak to you too. And thank you again.
Thank you, Dr. Rezaeian and Farah, for a most enlightening discussion that provides some interesting context and background for the film we will now view. We also would like to thank the partners and technical team who have assisted with this program.
I think we all recognize that nothing in our world is more necessary than the spirit of Nowruz. When we see all the conflicts around the world, when we see the plight of migrants and refugees, when we see the rise of xenophobia and racism in so many parts of the world, it is clear that we all need the spirit of Nowruz.
The Spirit of Nowruz. One family, one song. Beneath the deepest snows, the secret of a rose is merely that it knows Nowruz is near. That beautiful rhapsody of spring, rebirth and love is near.
Nowruz reveals itself at the spring equinox, which is the time of rejuvenation and joy. At that time, we anticipate the heavens to bestow upon us more rainfall, making the earth more compassionate to us. Thus, the whole renewed world will rejoice and smile at us.
Nowruz is an ode to spring, rejuvenation, and breeze of light. As the famous Persian poet Hafez reaffirms, from the abode of the beloved comes the fragrant breeze of Nowruz. From this breeze, if you ask for aid, you kindle the lamp of your heart. Nowruz marks the first day of spring on March the 21st. The beginning of the Iranian New Year. This fragrant breeze of Nowruz is overwhelmingly inclusive and ascends beyond all ethnic, linguistic, and religious barriers. Thus, today, Nowruz is celebrated by over 300 million people in various countries around the world, including Afghanistan, Azerbaijan, India, Iran, Iraq, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Pakistan, Tajikistan, Turkey, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and beyond. Nowruz is also associated with the spectacles of Jamshid, the most glorious of the legendary kings of Persia. His legend was recorded by the celebrated Persian epic poet Ferdowsi about 1,000 years ago and has been reiterated by storytellers ever since. In this epic story, Jamshid defeats the vicious and ruthless demons of darkness and brings hope and happiness back to the nation. This triumph of light over darkness was then called Nowruz, the new day, or the new light.
Symbolically, this festival signifies the victory of the day over the night, good over evil, light over darkness.
Today, as a reminder of Jamshid's triumph against the demons of darkness, people congratulate each other and joyously declare,
Navruzaton firuz bod, har ruzaton Navruz bod.
or may your Nowruz be triumphant.
In this moment of spring, nature is reborn. The powers of light overcome the powers of darkness. Voice prevails over silence and warmth over cold, which makes mankind rejoice.
Meanwhile, drums, special oboes, and trumpets, which are the instruments usually used in military victories, are jubilantly played in various countries. But is there any actual historical or archaeological evidence for the Nowruz celebrations? Possible clues depicting such an unprecedented multinational festivity could be found at an ancient city in the Iranian heartland, at Parse, or as the Greeks called it, Persepolis.
To this remarkable ceremonial center of a vast world empire, there came on New Year's Day, the vernal equinox on the 21st of March, many peoples, representatives of the various satrapies or governorships which Darius had established in the empire. So they brought all sorts of things, from the Ionian Greeks to the Egyptians, the Babylonians, the Indians. It must have been a grand occasion to see the various people walking up the stairs, coming into these wonderful stone palaces, bringing their gifts in the presence of the king. This was Persepolis.
Their gifts of honor were presented to a Persian king who is depicted sitting on a throne, holding not a sword, not a mace, but a flower, possibly a lotus, as a symbol of peace and friendship.
Here's a marvelous embossed relief, which is a masterpiece of Achaemenid art. Well, that portrays the beginning of the royal audience, most probably at Nowruz or Mehragan ceremonies. The king is seated on the throne, while the ceremonial chief is offering an explanation about the procedures. After that, the gift-bearers would start their procession, and the majestic Nowruz ceremonies would start.
The continuity of Nowruz celebrations for over 2,500 years is a baffling secret. Old narratives tell us that over 1,600 years ago, in the Sasanian period, Iranians would sprout 7 edible grains at the time of Nowruz. Then, the one that grew taller was predicted to be more abundant in the new year.
The spread of Nowruz has to do with the fact that Iran, as it is right now, is only a small part of what once covered the extent of the Achaemenid or Sasanian Empire, or even, let's say, the outreach of Iranian culture beyond its political borders. So it is not surprising that Nowruz is found in the Balkans. It was not brought by the Iranians, it was brought by the Ottoman Turks. The Ottoman Turks, although they themselves were not Iranians, they adopted Iranian culture, Iranian literature, and they adopted also Nowruz Sultani, as they call it, the Royal New Year's Day.
Throughout history, Turkish people have been celebrating in Central Asia as well as in Anatolia Nowruz with a hope for new beginning, for a better future for all. This event is a clear message for peace, inclusiveness, and human solidarity.
Thus today, Nowruz is still celebrated in an astonishingly enchanting manner, in a vast domain. From the Balkans and parts of Eastern Europe, to certain parts of China and even Mongolia. In Olgi, in Western Mongolia, for example, almost 1,000 musicians, young and old, gather every year. Harmoniously, they perform a joyous melody for Nowruz celebrations with their small yet magnificent string instruments. For centuries, welcoming measures of Nowruz have been held with the utmost glory throughout Iran.
Salam ay camaat. Salam. Gözümüzdə çox xoş gəlibsiz ay camaat. Yığışın, gəlin, deyin, gülün, çalın, oynayın ay camaat. Sayatı gelir bakın, selamın verir alın. Sayatı gelir bakın, selamın verir alın. Gelin gelin biz bir olaq, sayasıya bir paylaşaq. Gelin.
Hidden in the green vegetation of the Caspian region, special plays are performed to herald the defeat of winter.
Here we conduct the play of the giant versus the bride. The giant is a symbol of winter, while the bride represents spring. In this play, we defeat the winter and herald that spring has come so that the people can start their farming and cultivation.
Nowruz is a time of renewal. This renewal starts from the houses with spring cleaning. Sweeping ditches and cleaning watercourses are also very important. In Talish, for instance, while the men purge the water's path of dirt and mud, young girls and ladies scatter rose petals and sprinkle rose water over the running water.
مبارک.
Other welcoming measures of Nowruz include coloring eggs, sprouting grains, and a special ceremony called Charshambe Suri, or the Feast of Wednesday. This feast is held on the eve of the last Wednesday preceding the new year, and consists of piling at least 3 small heaps of shrubbery and setting them alight. Then all the members of the family in turn leap over the flames, reciting a short rhyme of good fortune. My pallor to you, your ruddiness to me. Thus they throw all malice and sorrow into the fire to burn and perish. But what is the rationale behind lighting fires? It is partly rooted in the Zoroastrian religion, which was dominant for much of the history of ancient Iran.
In the last 5 days preceding the New Year, we Zoroastrians have a special custom. We clean our homes and make preparations for the remembrance of our dead by inviting their souls or farvahars to our homes. Then, on the eve of Nowruz, before the sunrise, by lighting fires on rooftops and with our prayers, we bid them farewell and welcome Nowruz.
Lighting fires on rooftops to welcome Nowruz, which is still performed in Yazd and Kerman, has undergone some changes after the advent of Islam. It has metamorphosed by Iranians into Charshambe Suri, or the Feast of Wednesday. This feast has been transferred from rooftops to streets and undergone certain changes, but the original custom was different.
The fires that are lit at Nowruz in the Iranian countryside, on the northern plains of Iraq, and on the beaches of Los Angeles burn up the bad luck and suffering of the previous year and carry the promise of future joy and a more peaceful world.
Today, on the eve of Nowruz, lighting fires, although for different purposes, is still customary, especially in Kurdistan. In the month leading up to the New Year's Day, acquiring gifts for the loved ones and Nowruz shopping, very similar to Christmas shopping, is very popular. But the most important Nowruz tradition in Iran is spreading a sofre. A sofre is a covering or cloth which is usually adorned with flowers, fruits, sweets, mirrors, and other objects. This spread has a connotation to Nowruz in the same way a Christmas tree has to Christmas. Although the articles on the spread may differ from region to region, the practice is shared by millions of people around the world. In Iran, the sofre is spread on a table or on a Persian carpet and contains 7 symbolic items whose names usually begin with the Persian letter Sin, which is the equivalent of the letter S in English. Senjed, dried Persian olive, also known as jujube fruit, for assessing matters under the aegis of wisdom. It is also mentioned that its fragrance stimulates love and passion. Sib, apple, for health and vitality of life. As the famous saying goes, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Samanu, a sweet pudding made from germinated wheat, for celestial force replete with power and potency. Sia, garlic, for its medicinal purposes and self-restraint. Serke, vinegar, for solving sour problems in our daily lives and adjustability to worldly circumstances. Sumac, for the organization of life supported by the pillar of patience. Its red color also represents the color of love and the alliance of hearts. and sabze, sprouted grains, for rebirth and profound respect for greenery and nature. Now let us see whether it is possible to discover any common feature among these 7 symbolic items.
Every item of the Haftzin must have these 7 features. First, it should begin with the letter Sin in Persian. Second, its name must be originally Persian. So any item whose name is not Persian is not welcome on the sofra. Third, it must have an organic origin. Fourth, it must be edible. Fifth, it must be accessible. Sixth, its name cannot be made of a synthetic word, like sabzi polo or other compound words. And seventh, it must be long-lasting so that it would endure throughout the ceremonies, which are held for 13 days.
Additional items that are frequently seen on the Nowruz spread are a book of wisdom, usually the Holy Quran or other scriptures, coins, a mirror, painted eggs, a bowl of water with a goldfish, hyacinth, and traditional confectionaries. During these auspicious days, many people journey to their temples, synagogues, churches, and mosques for Thanksgiving prayers. When the Nowruz table is set and the turn of the year, or Tahavile Sol, draws near, the family members sit around the sofre, usually wearing new clothes. They avoid expressing depressing thoughts and wish a year full of goodness, health, and happiness for everyone. O reformer of hearts and eyes, O director of the affairs of day and night, O transformer of life and human beings' destiny and conditions, transform our condition to the best and most splendid state. Gradually, the countdown for the commencement of the new year begins.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Nowruz Mubarak!
Happy Nowruz to everyone!
Nowruz Mubarak!
سال نو به همتون مبارک باشه. این عید شما، کادوی شما.
After Tahavile Sal, gifts are exchanged. Then, visiting relatives, neighbors and friends begins. The elderly members of the family receive the visit first, followed by the junior members.
The ideals associated with Nowruz are truly harmonious with our customs and tradition. During the season of Nowruz, lingering grievances and quarrels are forgotten, and all the people strive to share the joys of the holiday with their families and friends and visit the elderly people to seek their blessing.
Nowruz knows no bounds. It crosses ethnicities, religions, language, mountains, forests, and rivers.
During the Nowruz visits in the Xinjiang region of China, we can see other unique customs. Here, the lady of the house pours some wheat flour on the guest's shoulder as an expression of well-wishing and blessings for the new year.
Nowruz bayramınız kutlu olsun. Nowruz is not just a holiday. It is a phenomenon that is based on the solid foundation of eternal values. The day when a man does not commit sin and does not violate the divine harmony. Therefore, this day is a true holiday for becoming a perfect person.
In Iran, the Nowruz holidays last 13 days. On the 13th day of the new year, called Sizdar Bidar, literally translated as out of doors on the 13th, people leave their houses to join nature and picnic outside. Perhaps the belief that it is unlucky to stay at home on the 13th was created to give the housebound added incentive to leave their homes and appreciate the unveiling of nature's beauty. On the day of Sizdar Bidar, folk dances are performed in various parts of the country, such as wood dancing in Khorasan. In Fars province, Kashke ladies and youngsters enhance the atmosphere of happiness and delight with their colorful and dazzling dresses.
We believe that Nowruz has the power to turn our good thoughts
into good words, and good words into good deeds. The spirit of Nowruz, which is celebrated these days, should remain with us each day of our lives, whenever we are, irrespective of our latitude and longitude.
As the sun sets, the Nowruz festivities draw to a close. But the spirit of Nowruz and its beautiful memories live on potently in the hearts and minds of millions of people throughout the world. But what is the secret behind the continuity of Nowruz, which has endured for millennia, despite various political and historical storms?
During the Soviet era, Nowruz festivities were banned. But after our independence, the people who had always preserved Nowruz in their hearts started to celebrate Nowruz exuberantly. Nowruz familiarizes us with a culture and civilization in which human beings learned that they should never become captives of hopelessness and depression. Thus, in this realm, no ritual can ever represent hope as Nowruz can.
Another reason why Nowruz is timeless is that it strives to increase joy among all human beings, irrespective of their color, race, creed, and gender.
This is our sofre, which is a combination of our half-seen as well as our pesa or Passover spread. We have mixed them together because we're Iranians first and then Jewish.
I'd like to express my best wishes to everyone celebrating Nowruz and wish them a Happy New Year.
Nowruz is a time of joy and festivity among different ethnic, linguistic, religious, and geographic groups. This special occasion helps bring people together in its spirit of joy, friendship, compassion, coexistence, and solidarity.
जिगर बंदी मरो कर दी तू परवा वो लैली सबा मजार में रम जान लैली दीदान यार में रम
In October 2009, in an unprecedented measure undertaken collectively by these countries, Nowruz was officially registered on the UNESCO list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity.
Nowruz celebrations take different forms depending on the region of the world you are lucky enough to attend them in, making them a perfect demonstration of the diversity and inventiveness of human cultures, an intangible heritage which is just as precious. Happy Nowruz to everyone.
Today, the Festival of Nowruz is celebrated by many people in a vast domain. The members of this huge family of over 300 million people resemble flowers of a single garden, the Nowruz garden, in which each flower disperses its own perfume to make this garden one of the most diverse yet fragrant patches of land in the world.
The Festival of Nowruz is a long-standing cultural tradition that welcomes the annual onset of spring that symbolizes a rebirth or renewal and hope and prosperity. Such festivals are, therefore, part of our civilizational heritage and link us to our ancestors across time.
Nowruz shines a light of hope and optimism by its message of a new beginning, of seeking peace through tolerance and promoting dialogue and reconciliation among peoples.
Nowruz promotes today's universally recognized values, such as peace, reconciliation, friendship, mutual understanding, respect for cultural diversity, tolerance, intercultural dialogue, and good neighborliness.
Its values echo those that we together promote at United Nations every day and everywhere. Nowruz reminds us of what we have in common and the richness of our diversity. I wish all of you a prosperous, happy, healthy and peaceful Nowruz. And may its spirit of friendship, harmony and respect for nature serve as an inspiration to us all.
میرقصی و صبحم را با ماه میامیزی برگردن شبهایم خورشید میآویزی میرقصی و میچرخی در گردش هر دستم در آینه‌ام هستی در آینه‌ات هستم میرقصی و صبحم را با ماه میآمیزی برگردن شبهایم خورشید میآویزی سرمست تو میرقصد سرمست تو میرقصد عشق و غزل و حافظ عشق و غزل و حافظ در دست تو میرقصد بشه هر دستم، در آینه هستی، در آینه هستم. میرقصی و صبحم را با ماه میامیزی، برگردن شبهایم خورشید میاویزی.
Thank you all for participating in this program tonight, and Nowruz Mubarak once again, wishing you all good health and prosperity in the coming year.